Hi, this is Kevin Trainer. Welcome to my tutorial on installing the RenderX XEP print formatter on macOS. I'm creating this tutorial in anticipation of the spring 2017 semester. It's late in the fall now. And I'm using the current version of all of the tools at hand. So that means that I'm using Mac OS 10.12, which is the Sierra distribution. This is the first one in which they're calling it Mac OS instead of OS X. And we're going to be working with the Oxygen XML Editor. So we're going to be integrating that with the RenderX XEP print formatter. And the Oxygen XML version we're using is 18.1, and that's pretty fresh. And the version of XCP that we're using is 4.25, and that was fresh back in the end of the summer. So that's the freshest one out as well. So I just want you to know that this is a tutorial that I expect to have a life of at least a year. So you may be getting to this towards the end of its life, in which case I want you to use the freshest stable versions of all these products, not the ones that I'm showing you. The procedure should be essentially the same, but you're going to want the fresh versions. Okay? So let's look at what we have here. So the first thing that we want to do is, as I mentioned, we're trying to integrate the XEP FO processor with the Oxygen XML Editor, because those are the two tools that we're using in my XML course, and that's our workflow. So first, let's take a look in the Oxygen XML Editor and see what's installed already for FO processing. So I'm just going to go down to the dock and click on the icon I have for Oxygen XML. And you can see we're at version 18.1 like I promised. And we open up, and the way to see what's installed in the way of FO processors is to go to Preferences. So on the Mac here, I go up to the menu, click on Oxygen XML Editor, then choose Preferences. Then out of my choices here, I want to expand the choice for XML. And then there is a sub-choice here for XSLTFOX query. Expand that choice. And we have here, we have FO processors. And so let's click on that. And we can see that already installed is the standard Apache FOP version of the FO processor, and that's already installed. Unfortunately, I don't really like FOP. It's free. That recommends it highly. But it comes up short in a lot of ways when it comes to the formatting. And that's why I like the paid versions of these FO processors. And the one that I like in particular, and I've been using for about 10 years, is the XCP FO processor from RenderX. And the RenderX folks have been good enough to give us academic licenses for my XML classes. And so that makes it particularly appropriate for us to give it a try. Now, currently we're set up to use built-in Apache FOP, and there are no external FO processors installed yet, which means we haven't installed XEP yet. And if we look down under this box that shows us the external FO processors, there is pretty much a shortcut for installing the XEP FO processor. We're going to click and browse to an executable file. And if we had that on the system, I would do it, but we don't have it yet. And that's going to be the next thing we're going to do. So we're ready to install, but it's not there. So let's cancel out of this, and let's close the Oxygen XML editor, and let's go find our software. Okay, so I'm going to assume that you're one of possibly two groups. Hopefully a lot of you are students in my XML class, in which case there's a license to the XEP product available for you on our class website. So if this is a class at UWM, it's going to be on our D2L site. And if this is a class at Illinois, it's going to be on our Moodle site. And I want you to go there, and there'll be two things to download. One is a PDF, a copy of an email that has a link to the easiest place to download the software from. So we'll just be able to click on the URL. And the other thing is an XML file called license.xml, and that's actually the file that holds our license code. Okay? So if you are not a part of my class, then you're going to want to go to the RenderX site, renderx.com, and get a license, if only a trial license. Okay, so we're going to assume when we get to that part that you have a license file. Okay, so let's crank up the browser. I'm going to open Safari. Let's just go to renderx.com. Okay. And if we click on products, we'll see that one of the products is this XEP engine. That's what we're using. Okay. And if we click on that, we have a whole bunch of stuff we've got. Licensing, information, XEP desktop, XEP server. We're going to be using XEP desktop, etc. Okay. You can also go to download, and you get a software download request form, and you send them your email, and they'll send you a trial license and the whole bit. Okay, but for those of us who are in the class, we're going to get to this. We're going to use a different page on the RenderX website. So I've already downloaded the files from the class website. So let's go to downloads. Okay, and we have the license code, and I would open it up, but I don't want to share our license code with the whole world, so I won't. But this RenderX XEP licensing email I can share. So I'm going to open that up. And it thanks us for working with them in our class, and it gives us a handy page where people who already have a license can easily download the software and it's at renderx.com, but it's at /download/updates.html. So we're going to click through on that. And you'll see that we're at a slightly different page than we saw before. And because you already have a license key, and it says it wants you to choose a license file. So I'm going to click the Choose File button. And I'm going to go to Downloads, where I have that. And I'm going to highlight License XML and choose that. And then I'm just going to click on Update. And it says that it should start to download. And pretty quickly, I see the animation that's showing that it's started to download. So that looks good. Okay, and that seems to be finished. So I'm going to close my browser. And I'm going to close this email that gave us a link. And I'm even going to close downloads for right now. Oh no, it's not true. Let's go back to downloads. It's easier to look at the downloads in here than down coming up out of the dock. And here it is, XEP4. And XEP4 has already been unzipped for me because this is a fresh copy of the operating system. I sometimes will turn off the option that automatically unzips downloads, but I haven't done that yet in this fresh copy of macOS, so it's automatically unzipped. And if we look inside, we can see that we have a couple of interesting files. We have a .jar file, okay, and here's where I'm going to tell you that if you don't have Java installed on your machine yet, this is the place where you should stop and go do that. So XEP is a Java application, and it requires Java be installed on your machine. It's already installed on my machine, but if it's not installed on yours, put this tutorial on hold. Go find my tutorial for installing Java on macOS. Do that, and then come on back. Okay? Okay. So now everybody's back. Everybody has Java installed. And it turns out that this file that I'm going to highlight now is a .jar file. That's a Java archive file. And jar files are a way to bundle up a bunch of Java code and to distribute it. And so that's what we have here. This is an executable jar file. So if we can get to the Java if we can get to the Java virtual machine and we can get to the right directory, we're going to be able to run this. Okay, so that's the file we're going to run. We're not quite ready to run it. Okay, let's look at readme.txt. That has the instructions in it. And so it looks like number 2 is installation. Come down to installation. And the thing that we're looking for here is we're looking for this line that we're supposed to type in at the command prompt. So we need to get to the directory that holds this file, okay? And we just saw that directory. And then we need to run this, we need to put this a command in at the command line, and it will run that jar file and do the installation for us. So that looks pretty good. Okay, how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to want to run a terminal. Okay, so let's do that. Okay, and let's easiest way for me to start the terminal is just go down to Launchpad and to click on Other and find Terminal within that and click on Terminal, and it fires up a terminal for us. Okay, so that's pretty good. It looks like it's in my directory system because you can see my name there, so that's good. And the good thing about that is it probably won't be very far to get to our downloads folder where we have this software. So the macOS operating system is a Unix operating system. So if you're used to working at the command line in macOS or Unix or even Linux, you're going to recognize the commands. But the first one we're going to learn is ls. Is going to give you a listing of the files in the current directory. And included in that is downloads. Okay, so we want to change the current directory to be the download subdirectory. So we do that with cd space. And in this operating system, the capitalization of file names is significant. So we want to say cd space downloads with a capital D. And we can see that it's changed in our prompt, our command prompt. We can see that we're in downloads now. That's good. So let's use ls again to see the directories, subdirectories in downloads. And we have for us a missing directory. Oh, there it is. XEP4. This is hiding over here. So let's do a cd to it. cd space XEP -4. And you can see on our prompt the word XEP4, so we're there. So let's see what's in that subdirectory with an ls. And we can see that one of the files listed is our jar file. It's the setup for release 4.25 created on 2016-05-22, and that's the one we're going to want to run. Now, if we just go back to the documentation that we opened in the text editor, we have the code to enter to actually run from that file. So I'm just going to go there. I've already highlighted that text. I'm going to right click and copy. All right. And I'm going to go back to my terminal window, and I'm going to right click right there on the command line and say paste. And there's my command. So that looks good. I'm just going to press enter. Okay. So I got a warning, but that looks okay. So I've got it wants to put the software under my home directory, Kevin Trainer. That looks good. It'll be different on your machine. Under the subdirectory XEP. That's great. There's a checkbox here to download some free font files. We love free stuff, so we're going to check that. The license file, it's looking for license.xml, but it doesn't have any path to it now. So let's go and find that with the browse. So that's in downloads. And there it is, license XML. Right where we had downloaded it, and click on choose. So now we see the full path to license.xml. And there's a checkbox here for activate later, but we have a license file, so we're going to activate now. No need to activate later. So now we're going to click on install. So it looks like we've installed the software. We need to agree to the license for the free font. So you have to pull that slider all the way down before it will allow you to click yes, I accept. And now we want to finish. Okay. So let's go look for our installation in the file system. Okay. So I'm going to close my terminal window and the documentation. And let's see. We need to find our way to my home directory. And to do that, I usually go to the top level directory. On mine, it's called Macintosh HD. So I click on that. And then I can see that underneath there's a subdirectory for users. Let's open up that. And then you can see my username, Kevin Trainer. So let's open up that. And then you can see, in addition to other things we've already been to, like documents and downloads, it's created a folder there called XEP. So that looks good. So let's open up that. And what we can see here is we've got some really interesting things. Okay. We have for you the license.xml that we pointed it to has been plunked right in the directory. So that's our license file just in the directory where it needs to be. So that's good. Okay. So it looks like a proper install to me. We'll try to work with it to confirm that. And as a matter of convenience, I find it helpful to take this example subdirectory and not be working with it out here in this odd part of the file system, but to create a copy. So I highlight, I'm going to right click and say copy examples. And then I'm going to go up just to my documents folder, double click through on that, and I'm going to paste this, and it's called examples. Tutorial examples was another set of examples I have, so let me rename examples, and let's call this XEP examples. So now we'll know what those are. So when we need to find examples, we'll know there's an XEP examples subdirectory in our documents directory. So that looks good. Okay, so we're ready to do the integration between XEP and Oxygen XML. So let's go back and start up Oxygen XML. It really hasn't quit yet, so I'm just going to click the icon and the dock. It's going to open again. And I'm going to go up to the menu and click on Oxygen XML Editor in the menu, and then Preferences. And you'll remember that the way that we got to our part of the preferences is we expanded XML, so that's already expanded. And then we expanded XSLT-FOX query, that's already expanded. And then we clicked on FO processors. Okay. And when we come over here, we can see in this window for external FO processors, because that's what we're installing, XEP is an external FO processor. It didn't come with Oxygen like the Apache FOP one did. And it turns out there's an easy way to install this. So they're so used to people installing this exact product that there's a button where we're going to browse to the product. So in this line that said add XEP FO processor, we're going to, and it wants the executable file. We're going to browse. Okay. And where are we going to go? Well, we're going to find our way to that installation again. Macintosh HD, users, my username, Kevin Trainer. You'd be going to yours. XEP. Okay. And we're just about there. I want to check one thing. Be right back. Hi. Okay. So we backed up just a hair, just to make sure that we're doing the absolute right thing. So again, we're going to use this browse button that's listed under Add XEP FO Processor. So we're going to browse, and we're going to find our way to that installation. And in my machine, the top level drive's called Macintosh HD, and then users, then my user directory is called Kevin Trainer. Yours would be different. Then go to XEP, and we want the executable file called XEP. So we want to highlight that, click on Open, and that's it. Now we see that it's here. Now this is here, but we're going to have to choose the XEP processor when we go to do a transformation. So I'll show you how to do that. So we'll say OK, and that looks like it's pretty well taken care of. And always nice to get a chat in the middle of your tutorial. So, geez, that's great. Well, here we go. So we're going to close the Oxygen XML product for now. Okay, so that's properly installed. So how would we test it out? Okay, well, we probably should reopen Oxygen XML. It's not really fully closed. Okay, we're going to go to those sample files that we saw before. So I'm going to go up to the toolbar, click on the open icon. Let's go to the documents subdirectory under my username. We created a copy of the XEP examples, and we called it XEP examples. We're going to open that, and it turns out that the one that we really like is called Hammer. Well, it's the one I really like. You can play with all of these in your time. Okay, so here's Hammer, and it turns out there are two files. There's an XML content-oriented document, and there's an XSLT transformation program or style sheet. So I want both of those. I'm going to highlight them both, and I'm going to click Open, and it should open two tabs for us. It does. And again, I'm going to close this window to the right so I get a little more real estate with which to see all this. And we can see we're on the style sheet. So let's go back to the content document. And this is a user manual for Hammer. So it's somewhat tongue-in-cheek. We don't really think you're going to need a user manual for a Hammer, but it's never going to go out of date, I don't think. And it's in a custom XML schema in which the this is incredible. There's just no way to stop this. In which the this is horrible. Sorry guys, this is what it's like to be a Casa trainer on a Sunday afternoon. Just things just go wrong. Okay. If I click on this, I don't know what's going to happen. Let's just click on it. Does it go away? Let's see if we can say that we want to force quit that thing. Can we force quit that? Preview? Maybe it's preview. Let's hope it's preview. Force quit it. Nope, that wasn't it. Okay. Well, things have gone completely bad. My daughter is making split pea soup. How about that? Okay, well, I'm a real guy with a real family. There you go. So I was explaining the document that we had before we were sort of rudely interrupted. So the root element is manual. Within that, we have a header, we have an annotation. There's a table of contents. Let's see, where's the table? I guess it's an empty table of contents. So it's going to be generated there. So that's just a place for a table of contents that's going to be generated. We come right into chapter. So this is the first chapter. We've got some front matter stuff. This is a typical custom schema, publishing-oriented kind of document. It's not geared toward any particular rendering or formatting. Okay, we could create a web version of this if we had the proper XSLT style sheet. Instead, what we have is this one called Hammer, and this is an XSLT style sheet that transforms the content and surrounds it with tags from the XSLFO tag set. And we're going to run that, and we're going to create an FO document, which is going to be fed in our workflow to that XCP formatting engine that we just installed. And away it's going to go. We're going to get a high quality PDF output. Okay, great. So those of you in my XML class will probably know that to do a transformation like this, we're going to use an Oxygen transformation scenario. And although it's not the only way to do it, what we typically do is that we start on the XML content document. And then to start a transformation scenario, we go to this second level toolbar and click on the wrench with the little red play button for configure transformation scenario. And we don't have an appropriate one, so we're going to click on new. And then it wants us to tell us what kind. And we just want a standard XML transformation with XSLT. And here we go, we have this. So the default name for the transformation scenario is just a copy of the name of the file that we're on. And I usually find that that's a bad idea because I want my transformations to be general so we can run them from a number of content files. So I'm going to call this one generate manual, because it runs the thing that generates the manual. And I'm going to say emit, put out XSLFO. Okay? So I can tell by looking at it that it'll work with a manual document and that it's going to create XSLFO, and that's what we want. All right, and those of you who have been in my XML class, you'll recognize this panel of the transformation scenario. And what we have here is the configuration for XSLT. And the main inputs are the XML URL and the XSL URL. So since we already chose the XML file, this expression that we got automatically is going to point to the right file. And now we have to match it up with the right XSL file. So let's go over here to the right and click on the file folder icon. And you'll remember that it's hammer.xsl that we want. So we'll highlight that and open it. And I like what it did, except that it gave me that big path expression. And I don't like that because that makes our transformation scenario bound to this particular location in the file system. And since both the XML document and the XSL document are in the same directory, we don't need a path. So I got rid of the entire path. So the files are set right. Now I have to come down here and pick the right transformer. I could probably get away with the Saxon 6.5.5, but the one we use in my class is the Saxon PE version. So for this release of Oxygen, it's Saxon PE 9.6.0.7. So we pick that. So we have configured everything on the XSLT tab. You might think that you could click on OK, but we're not going to because we have to configure the other two tabs. So the second tab, the FO Processor tab, we go to now. And the first thing is we check the box for Perform FO Processing. And it says, what is the input? And the transformation result is what we want to use as input. That is an FO format file. That's good. The method, PDF, we want to create a PDF. That's good. And then the processor, unfortunately, is set to Apache FOP. Let's go take the drop down and pick XEP. That's what we want. We're still not ready to click on OK because we've got one more tab to configure. So let's go to the Output tab. And we do want to save as, but now we need to name things the right way. So typically what we do is we use, we go over to the right side with a little ... icon. And we pick one of the macro variables that it can use. And this is the fourth one down at $CFN approximately. So that gives us the current file name without the extension. And so we're going to use the current file name for the content document, and we're just going to finish up with .pdf. PDF. Okay, so that's proper. And then we want to check the box for open in browser/system application. And now we're finally ready to press OK. So there's OK. And as you can see, we come back, we see our transformation scenario. It's checked off. Oxygen will run all the transformation scenarios that are checked off. So we just want this one that we want. And you remember we called it generate manual emit XSLFO. Okay, that sounds good. And then we can just go down to the bottom and click Apply Associated. And it runs pretty quickly. We see the output down in the bottom. And here we see the PDF is opened up. And I think it's probably in preview. Yeah. So it has opened it up in the Mac application for PDFs, which is preview, and that looks good. And here's our here's the output. So we get a really pretty title page, and then we have sort of a dedication page. Now, well, it's that kind of page, another front matter page. We have the next page has got our content. And as part of our content, we begin with the table of contents. This is automatically generated. Very nice. And you can see we have a 2-column layout. That's a little fancy for my students, but it's certainly possible. Okay. You can see that we have a footer where we have the copyright and such, and I guess we have a footnote there as well. And then on the next page, you can see we've got some graphics that we were able to use. Plus, on the right side, we have a table. So XSL FO has a really great markup capability for tables, and that one looks quite good. And then we come down to the end. You see we were even able to generate a backup book index, so there are some features to do that. Again, they're fairly advanced, but they're there. And that's it. That's the whole document. Okay, this is a regular PDF, distributable in any way that you would distribute a PDF. So I'm going to leave you here. If you want to run some of those other examples, you can take the same approach that I did. You're going to have to create a transformation scenario for each of the ones that you want to do, but I think we've learned enough about that. So I'm going to leave you here, and I'm going to say bye until next time. Bye-bye.